Hello, everybody. Am I alive? I feel like I'm alive. I'm alive. Yep, so I'm going to assume that we're cooking just fine. Scott Jernigan is typing something which he's about to say, you sound great. And as soon as he hits enter, Dave Rush says it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, happy. Everybody, it's Mike Meyers with his Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Ask Me Anything live stream. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are isolated because of the coronavirus an opportunity to continue to practice for our CompTIA certifications, in particular IT Fundamentals, A+, Net+, and Security+. But we are certainly capable of talking outside of that area. We're pretty comfortable with certifications in general. On top of that, we're also pretty nerdy, and if anybody has any nerdy questions, well, by golly, that's the place to do it. The goal of these the goal of these live streams is, as the name implies, it's Ask Mike Anything. So the goal here is that you ask me questions and then I answer them. We do from time to time have topics that come up based on demand. Today we're going to be talking about certificates. I need to be careful about that. We've already talked about certificates a little bit. It's going to be kind of a continuation of what we talked about on certificates before when we were talking about asymmetric encryption, except now we're actually going to take true X.509 certificates and see how we actually use them, like on web pages. I'm going to be concentrating on web pages exclusively today. And we're going to be talking about PKI and root authorities and intermediate certificate authorities and all that fun stuff. It's actually pretty cool. So we do have topics like that, but even though we're going to be talking about certificates today, that's going to take 20, 30 minutes. So we have up to 2 hours. Remember, I will talk from now until 4 o'clock my time or until the questions run out. So we can go either way. What's been happening here is people tend to ask a lot of questions up front. We work on those for a while. Then we hit whatever the topic is, and then we keep going. We rarely end here before 2 hours, although we've had a couple of times. And it's never a problem. I am here for you. Also keep in mind we have all kinds of specials. For example, just because you were kind enough to show up today, we are giving you the specials for this week. It's 50% off total seminar simulations and practice tests. Yeah, we had 60% off last week. You snooze, you lose. And the code is MMLive713 at checkout. So all you have to do is go to, just bang my watch, go to www.totalsem.com, pick up simulations or practice questions, and when you go to checkout, just type in MMLive713, and I'm sure there. Scott's already typed it in. Suck it on a big lemon drop. It's good. And so you get 50% off, which I already think are the best practice questions out there, which I also think we're about the cheapest practice questions already out there. And now we're going to even give you half off. This is crazy. Our prices are insane. All right. So anyway, code is not live yet. Don't use it yet. At some point, it's going to go live. That code I just gave you, which Scott has typed in, but just give it a minute, and then it will kick over. All right. So I got good news, and I got bad news, and I got good news. The gentleman, Jeff Sage from EC Council, canceled. Just straight up canceled. He has some personal issues in today's Corona world. I'm not going to ask any questions. These things happen. I hope that he will try to reschedule in the near future. And that is completely up to them. We'll stay on top of that. On the positive side, my buddy, Elaine Batzer, who is actually on right now, Elaine is going to be coming on in his stead on Wednesday to cover. Elaine, thank you so much. Thank you. And we'll be talking about things and stuff. Elaine's as big of a nerd as I am, so we're just going to let it go kind of where it wants to go, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, Brandon, we're going to try to get him back. Also, keep in mind, Brandon, that I'm also going to try really, really hard to get, I'm pretty sure I'll get James Stranger, the chief evangelist for CompTIA, and a good associate of mine who will also be coming on. On top of that, we also, all you people who want to get a job, well, I tell you, we got a real special deal coming up. My buddy Jessica Dickerson, who is, she actually was traveling in Florida. She's driving back to Houston. Be careful out there, Jessica. Jessica has tons of experience and management standpoint for security. She's worked with companies that do a lot of entry-level IT security hiring. And I asked her to do a Zoom meeting with me. And so we'll be seeing her sometime next week. So yes, I'm very disappointed that we missed EC Council, but with Elaine, with Jessica, with James coming up, I think we're going to be pretty excited about what's going to be coming up. So fingers crossed, everybody. So bad news. I guess you guys have heard that the corona has really spiked here in Texas. Elaine was actually going to be flying down, and then with everything spiking, she was like, Mike, and I was like, yeah, I don't blame you. So, but it'll be just as well. We'll have a great Zoom meeting, and that'll be fun. So Elaine, that'll work out just great. On the positive side, I'm 2 inches off my chest, 2 inches off my waist. Feeling strong, working out all the time, so progress is happening. My trainer's like, Mike, stop looking at the scale so much. I'm like, yeah, when I get a lot skinnier, I'll stop looking at the scale. But right now I'm looking at the scale. But so we'll see what happens. Man, I leap up a flight of steps now. I got to tell you, that's the big difference. It's never a big body image thing for me. It was just, I stopped feeling healthy. You know what I mean? And, I was running out of breath and I couldn't walk up a flight of steps. And, I'm just not ready to be there yet. Maybe when I'm 80 or so, but right now, so we'll see how far this takes us. So got that going. We're not going to see Her Royal Highness Wicket anytime soon, as far as I can tell. Again, everybody's being a lot more careful right now because of the corona. And I can only tell you that inner city Houston is all but shut down and has been for over a week, but it's going to take us a while more before we reap the benefits of being especially careful. So see what happens. I hope you guys are all staying okay where you are. I know, especially you guys overseas. I saw Joe was on. I know everybody right now looks at Americans as typhoid Marys, and so we got to be careful with that. All right. So I did not really practice for this certificate thing, but hey, I mean, I've done this a number of times. We can pretty much figure it out. So be warned, when we do the certificates, if anything blows up, I may have to do this through interpretive dance. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Anyway, let's get to some questions. Matt Orton's back. Andre's on. Matt H. Jow. See, I did see you, Jow. Vance Moore. Vance Moore. I was thinking of The Office. You ever watch The Office? Vance Refrigeration? I don't know, I'm stuck with him. Oh, you just passed. Big round of applause to Vance Moore for passing the IT fundamentals. Well done, sir. Jow, you can only be here the first 60 minutes. Don't worry, man. We'll record it. Tollywood is traveling and will be a passive participant today. I mean, there's Elaine. You like my Skills USA? So if you guys are unfamiliar with Skills USA, you should know about it. Skills USA is an international competition where everything from engineers to bakers to router configuration, VoIP systems, PC system support, and go through these big competitions. It's probably one of my biggest personal charities. I've been contributing to it for a long time. I used to judge the national finals here in the United States. It's been a little bit tricky for me to be able to do that as much as I'd like to anymore. However, Skills USA, especially if you're an instructor, especially if you're high school or just out of high school, you should really look into Skills USA. It's a wonderful program and it's a lot of fun too. Aaron Starrett. Hey, Mike, good day. I invited my little brother, Brandon. This is his first years. He's a junior at Ball State. Ball State, like in Indiana Ball State? That's cool. LBOE is here. John F. Can we slip about IPSec in there too? Sure. John, do you have a particular question about IPSec? Or do you need like an overview statement? And John, don't sit here and say, I need to know what's on the test. Very little, like almost nothing, to be honest with you. Giles Sosa, I will try, but Giles, what's important to me is I address everybody's questions, and I will do my very best. We only have about 30 minutes on it. And the thing is whatever we do on certs today, you guys are gonna have to ask better questions. No offense, kids, but I'm not getting the kind of questions I was hoping to see. In particular, like if we talk about something, then it's my thought you guys are digesting it, and then you're playing with it yourself. Something goes wrong, you make a mistake, and you get to, and then you ask me questions, and then we work it out together. I mean, ask me what you want. Whoop, what did I do wrong, Scott? Matt H. What did Matt H do? Thanks. Matt H said thanks. Matt H passed oh, cool. Matt, you passed the 1001. Big round of applause. Who cares what your score is? The only thing D for diploma. Remember that. Nobody cares. The important thing is that you took it and you passed. So John, if you have detailed questions about IPSec, throw it in there now. I guess I can do a quick little overview thing, but I'm going to, Scott, don't let me forget that. We're going to do certificates first today, and then I can do like a quick overview discussion of IPSec. Good Lord, don't ask me. I'll remember. LBOE likes talking about things and stuff. Me too. Rain Porous, hi, I love things and stuff. Excellent, Rain. Things and stuff, this is a very broad description. It is very broad. Yep, 2 inches, man, I'm telling you. Undefined 53C. Hi, can I move from IT fundamentals to from A+, to from Net+, to from security? Can you go through this crazy pile of stuff if you don't have experience in the field? Yeah, but why would you do that, Undefined? What's your motivation? Undefined, first of all, welcome aboard. You're a new face, but you're going to have to hit the speech from Mike. Listen, if you think you're going to get a bunch of certifications then magically get a job, you're wrong, okay? What happens in our industry is you start off with entry-level jobs, okay, that don't require certification, or a lot of them require you, okay, you got the job, now you got 6 months to get A+, or something like that. You go get a job. You go get an entry-level job. You go get a job. Go get a job. Get a job, okay? Oh, Mike, it's an entry-level job. It's only paying $10 an hour. Tough. Because what you're doing is in the nights and the weekends, that's when you're practicing for your certifications. That's when you knock your certifications out. You understand? Then you get that certification and you're constantly looking for new work. In the IT industry, it is assumed that there is high turnover, especially in your first 2 years. I would actually be nervous about somebody who just jumped in the industry and didn't have a bunch of jobs. It's just what we do. So you're looking for a better job. You're looking for a better job. And especially early on when you're picking up a lot of these, what I call, to me, A+, Net+, Security Plus are what I would call entry-level certifications. And once you start picking these up, which you do tend to pick them up relatively quickly, and you keep jumping from job to job. Next thing you know, you're at about, I know you got a lot of you guys are overseas. I'm sorry, I can't do euros in my head, but you're in the $50,000 to $70,000 a year, which you should be able to get to within the first 2 years, unless you're doing something really wrong. And then you keep moving forward from there. I mean, that's just how we do it. This really hasn't changed. I'm getting really paranoid about talking about jobs and money because I know a lot of you guys are from other countries. And my real experience is only within the United States. About a month and a half ago, I started asking around for people. I was like, well, how do you get jobs if you're in the UK or if you're in the EU? And nobody responded. Like, nobody. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I don't even, I start worrying, is there a cultural thing? Was I being inappropriate to even ask that question? Here in the States, as you can see, we got people coming in who are going to give you some ideas. I guarantee I'm going to hit Elaine up for, here Elaine, you've been warned on this one at least, is what about jobs? And even if you're just talking from a completely lay position, I want to hear from it. But why did everybody in Europe, everybody, no exception, suddenly shut up the moment I said that? Usually when people stop talking with you, it's because you've done something culturally inappropriate or confusing. And people just, they don't want to be rude, so they walk away. So, yeah, it's very, very frustrating. So the bottom line is undefined 53C. Come get to work. Can you move from all these certs? Sure you can. But why do you want to? You know, do you need all these certs? Where's your goals? Where's your passion? Undefined here, undefined. This is just for you. Send me an email, man. See there, michaelm@totalsem.com. Send me an email. Just say, Mike, let's talk. Let's rap. You know, boy, did I just turn into an old dude with that statement, huh? But I just want you to send me an email. Just tell me what your goals are. Where are you? 53C. Why do I have a feeling that 53C, is that a U.S. Army thing? 53 Charlie? Or is that your age? Or whatever it might be? Do me a favor, undefined, send me an email. Let's just talk about this. I would like more information. Justin Kinsey. Hey, Mike. Hey, Justin. Yeah, but boy, I'm like 10 minutes behind the conversation. Tomas Protovin, new student of your book and videos here. Welcome, Tomas. Brandon B. Tech colleges do quite a bit of Skills USA, Brandon, and it's a lot of fun. Oh, goodness. Yes, LBOE. That was a Skills USA. Is Skills USA the thing you were talking about where you messed up a bunch of techs by messing up their boot order with a thumb drive? Yes. You got to keep in mind that the techs who come in for systems repair, I mean, there's no more than 200. So it's usually 2 high schoolers, 2 tech schools per state, but not all the states participate. So usually about anywhere between 100 to 200 kids. And these kids are great. They're like really good. They're like terrifyingly good. So I usually set up competitions that I personally would not be able to complete. Well, within the time frame, because these kids are that sharp. Nikita, thanks for hosting. Yeah, sure, man. That's what I'm here for. Ball State in Muncie, Indiana. Brandon, I used to live in a little town called Holland, Indiana. Way, way down. Okay, John F., just a little bit overview. Is it a suite? No, it's a protocol. It's a protocol suite, I guess. I mean, is there any issue with pass? No. You can do it any way you want, undefined. You can do CYSA, then ITF, then Network Plus, then A Plus. There's no prerequisites or order or anything. There's a de facto path that nerds like me say you probably ought to do IT fundamentals. But again, IT fundamentals for me is it's a great first certification because it's very inexpensive compared to the other ones and relatively easy. We often see that even done at middle schools here in the United States. A Plus is a good systems repair. Network Plus is the most important certification you'll never get a job with because it really gives you a core understanding of networks. And then from there, even Security Plus can be a question mark depending on what people want to do. D Green. But the answer is undefined. There is no issue with you doing, there is no rules or anything like that. You can do it any order you want, man. Justin Kinsey, last time you took the A Plus in 1999. It's a little different. Oops, Mike just signed up for rapping. Was I rapping? Was I a rapper? Falak here. Falak, the hard question guy. Welcome, Falak. Always good to see you, my brother. How awesome would it be if he made a rap video? Hey, Mike Jones, I could do that. Hey, Wissa, what do they call that rap music from Houston? Shred? Punk and shred? This is like 20 years ago. I forget what it's called. But it's like this real slow rap music. Mm-hmm. ACDHP. Hey, Brandon B, I'm too dumb to figure out which. Do we have to remember all switches of netcat and netstat for Security Plus? No. Good God, trying to remember all of the switches for netcat alone would torture you. I mean, look, Falak, run netstat a few times. I mean, what are you going to, look, there's only 2 switches in netstat you're ever going to use, in my opinion. You're going to do -n, right? You do -n because you get tired of it resolving all the DNS names. I just want to see the IP addresses. That's -n. And then -a, which is probably 90% of the time I run netstat, I do it with -a because I want to see all the ports, not just the active ones. I mean, if you want to see what ports you're listing on, you've got to do netstat -a. Looking for work in the Netherlands. This is Andre. He's got shoes, wooden shoes. He's in the Netherlands, not in Belgium. Write to employees, call employers, talk to people. We have employment office. They have some addresses, mostly out of date. So, Andre, I got a question for you. Do this as real time as you can. Andre, do you think motivated people who work hard to get a job can find a job in the EU right now? Just curious what your opinion is, doing the stuff that you're talking about right there. So, Andre, I'm waiting. We'll see what he types back in. Any tips for the 1002, starting with your course next week? Any topics of lots of people? Andre says yes. All right, so thank you, Andre. Literally the first response I've got by anybody in the EU. And it makes my heart proud to know that people with a little hustle out there, man, that's what we need to do a video on, is like how to get a job. And because I keep doing pieces of it and keep repeating stuff, which I'm glad to do. New people are showing up. Other people drop off. That's fine. That's fine. No worries. But we should do like a course on that. It's like how to get a job. Okay. So Matt H for the 1002. Man, same story I always tell everybody. Look, so you're starting my course, which I'm assuming is a video course, which I don't know which video course that is. They're all fairly similar. I sell to lots of different people. Look, to me, the perfect 3 things you need to pass any certification, not just my certification, not just CompTIA certification, any certification is you need videos, you need a book, and you need practice questions. You need these 3 things, which are the triumvirate of success. Do you have to have all 3? No. I've seen lots of people pass with just a book. I've seen lots of people pass with just a video. I've seen lots of people pass with just practice questions. But my statement to you is there's a reason I make these 3 things, not because I'm trying to get rich, but because these are the 3 things the vast majority of people need to pass any certification. Any certification. I've been doing this for more than 25 years now, and I kind of know what works. And it keeps working. And I know there's other people out there who say you don't need a book. To them, I say, but the most important thing is you have to know yourself. What kind of learner are you? Are you someone who likes to read? Then you need a book. Are you someone who likes to watch videos? Then you need a video. Are you kinesthetic? You like to do it? Then you can kind of go either way, because books have labs in them. Videos have examples that you can kind of follow along on. But the third part, the practice questions, everybody needs. You got to have practice questions. You got to have them. It's just absolutely important that you have questions, practice questions. And we sell practice questions right here. So in a minute, we'll have a code where you can get 50% off of our practice questions. I'm not sure if that's actually lit up yet, so you don't want to run over there. And chopped and screwed, Terrence Stevens, that's it. Chopped and screwed, that was going to drive me crazy. Thank you. That was... Manish Thakur, you're from India? INFIA, I'll bet you mean India. There you go. I'll do a rap song for OSI. All the brothers out there, okay, fat old white guys doing rap, then that'll end all that right there. Terrence Stephen, why is the Houston IT market is bad compared to Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio? Well, Terrence, first of all, I would disagree with you if you say it's bad. You have a lot of noise out there. I don't really watch the Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio market like I watch the Houston market. when people when you say something like that, a lot of times I think what you're talking about is what you're exposing yourself to. And I'll bet a lot of times if we sat down over a beer and talked about this, Terrence, you'd be saying something like, well, I went to, this one website and got this answer. And I'd be like, I don't know. Terrence, man, do me a favor. Next week when I get Jessica Dickerson in here, I mean, she's really got her finger on the Houston market in particular, and she has a lot of exposure to the Dallas market too. I would really, really appreciate it, Terrence, if you'd be willing to talk about this with me again. So this will almost certainly be not this Wednesday, but the next Wednesday after that. We're going to have Jessica Dickerson on, and she's really, really good at that. And yeah, everybody Andre, I'm glad to hear you say that. If you want, there's plenty of work, just don't be picky. And to be in the EU and say that says a lot more. I get in trouble every time I go over to the EU and try to do something because I'm always like, let's just do it. And they're like, you Americans, you're just so enthusiastic and everything, but that's not how we do it here. It's like, okay, well, that's how we do it in the States. All right, Elaine, so this Wednesday, 2 days from now, Elaine and I are also going to be talking about job stuff. So, Matt, you might want to, God tell you, Matt, this next 10 days or so, remember, I'm only here Monday, Wednesday, Friday. These are probably good days to talk about that stuff. How are we doing on time? Matt H., the UK is facing uncertainty with Brexit. And unfortunately, IT is actually a stable industry as long as you're willing to work for £5 an hour as an apprentice. Yipe. Geez, Matt H., I would hope that in the UK, just like in the States, so I tell a lot of people if their first job is $10 or $11 an hour, which really isn't a living wage, but if that could at least get you going so that you're helping cover the rent or whatever it is, then you do that, but then you look to move past that as quickly as possible. Oh no, is the cat is spewy sighting. Yeah, the cat's infatuated with its own self in the air. Alice Pozzi's here. Now we could get started. To get a job in Italy is not hard. To get a decently paid job is hard. There is no work mobility. Stay in the same company forever. Interesting. Thanks for the insight, Alice. I appreciate that. Somali's back. Hey, Mike. Hey, Somali. Tomas. Hi, Mike. It was not entirely clear to me how the IP address classes work. Can you please tell me who assigns these classes? Mine is a C class. Can I actually set it to A or B by modifying the subnet? Sure, Tomas. Let's talk about that for a minute. And Tomas, after we do that, Joe, we're going to go ahead and start certificates. So if any more questions that come in from now, I'm going to have to wait for a minute. All right? Because Joe's only got an hour. I want to try to get it knocked out for him. So we've only got another 30 minutes. Okay, Tomas. Can you please tell me who assigns these classes? These classes are assigned by the IANA, and then there are the regional authorities. Now keep in mind that there are very few to no class. Like today, if you want to get a Class A, that doesn't exist. They've been gone for 10 years. You want to get a Class B, they're probably all gone. What happens today is that people just, I'm just, because you're talking classes, so I'm going to make it easy for you. There's just a few Class C's left. Actually, what most people do is they do something called subnetting. So they'll take, instead of an entire Class C, which is 255 addresses, 254 addresses, they will do this thing called subnetting, which is even less. So they only get 3 addresses, or they only get 3. They only get 4 addresses, or they only get 6 addresses. What's happening, because today we have this thing called NAT. So in NAT, what happens is the only thing that needs real IP addresses is the front, or what we call the WAN side of your router. Once the router has a legitimate IP address, a public IP address, then the router can pass out downstream to the individual computers and cameras and smartphones on the wireless and all those guys. they can all use private IP addresses. And that's why you very commonly see at the network level, at the individual computer level, 192.168, or like on my network, it's 172.18, which if you look it up, that's also a private IP address range. So what happens, before we ran out of stuff, the IANA would pass out a Class A to the different regional authorities. The regional authorities could then pass out a Class A, but very few actual straight up end user companies got Class A's. IBM did. But usually what would happen is that these Class A addresses would be passed out to internet service providers. Like 14 dot Class A went to, what was it called back then? It's Comcast now. We used to call it Roadrunner back in the old days. Anyway, so as an ISP, they would get that, and then they would take that 14 address, and then they would subnet that Class A address into it's not really a Class B, it's a subnetted Class A. So 14.1 would go to Philadelphia, 14.2 would go to Houston, 14.3 would go to Miami. You get the idea? It would chop it up, and then the individual addresses would be, this zip code in Miami got 14.3.6, 14.3.7. You get the idea? Is that how it chopped up? The reality is that when they invented IPv4, they didn't give it enough dots. They screwed up. If we could go back in time to the late 1970s and do IPv4 better, remember it's all just binary values, so we could probably turn it into, instead of 4 octets, we could have turned it into 8 hexadecimal characters separated by 7 dots. So that would allow us more granularity. Does that make sense? But they didn't do that. They couldn't. And once they did this, there's this whole thing called CIDR, which we call subnetting, which comes into play on that. And then from there, it's really a matter of we all move to IPv6 because IPv6 is wonderful. So, Tomas, I hope that answers the question for you. You have a Class C address, like 192.168.4, but can I set it to A or B by modifying the subnet? When you say mine is C class, what you're talking about, Tomas, is that you have a router that comes from your internet service provider, and squirting out on the LAN side of this is a Class C address, like 192.168.5, right? Can you change that? You sure can. Go into the router. Its IP address is almost certainly 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.0.1, because I'll bet you never changed it, and change the LAN side of its address to, 10.1.2.1. So 10.1.2.1. And what you've just done is you've taken a Class A address, which is a 10 dot, but you're going to subnet it down to a WAC 24, or what you're calling a Class C. And yeah, you absolutely can do that. You sure can, because that's your own private network. Anything behind your router, you can do pretty much anything you want. Have fun. In fact, you should. Before you start playing with this too much, you should figure out how to do a factory reset on your home router, because you're going to screw it up. And we've all been there, and it is a good thing to do. Just make sure if you lock up your router that there aren't 3 other people in the house who are suddenly coming at you with kitchen knives because you've knocked down the internet on them. Sometimes to learn, we must first break. All right, let's talk about certificates. You guys ready for some certificates? All right, Joe, if we can't get it all. Oh, the code is live now. One more time then. Scott, let's put up the code. You got 50% off all Total Seminar simulations and the Total Tester practice test. That's all of them. So all you have to do is go to www.totalsem.com, go to our merchant area, pick up the practice questions you want, and then at checkout type in MMLive713, and you instantly get 50% off. These are crazy prices. All right. Certificates, huh? Okay, here we go. Eric Crenshaw, yeah, awesome cert talk. I'll assume you're saying that in a positive way. Okay, here we go. Now, last time we were talking about encryption, we were talking about asymmetric encryption, okay? And this was just last week, If you want to rewatch that episode, feel free to do it. It's right there for you. The trick to asymmetric encryption is that you have a public and a private key, okay? So if you and I want to send data to each other, now at this point in the game, I'm just going to keep this to web pages, okay? You can do the same thing with email. You can do the same thing with Zoom conferencing. You can do the same thing with texting. I don't care, all right? But for right now, let's just say I want to encrypt the conversation that's going in between a web server and a web browser, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is stored on the web server is his public and his private key. The public key only encrypts. The private key only decrypts. Got it? So, and we actually did this last week when we were taking a look at Wireshark. We actually watched the TLS handshake takes place, and we saw that when a browser says hello to a server, the server immediately responds by throwing him the public key. Got it? Now, public keys don't exist by themselves. Public keys have all this extra stuff put around them for security that was under a standard called X.509, and the X.509 standard basically said, how ye shall pass out public keys using digital signatures, using third-party confirmation, and putting lots of other stuff in there for safety. Because the whole goal of doing all this stuff with these public and private keys is we want to set up an encrypted link so that when you type in your credit card at eBay or Amazon or whatever it is, bad guys can't get your credit card. Got it? Okay. So the X.509 committee said, ye shall take, whenever a web page, actually almost anything, passes out a public key, it needs to come with a digital signature, which is a hash value that's generated by the whoever has the private key, which we call that a digital signature. And then the third thing it should have is a third party's digital signature. A third party like Komodo or Thwate or VeriSign or all these companies out there who basically go, look, we assure you that this certificate is from www.ican'tbelieveitsbubblegum.com or whatever. Should be careful quoting arbitrary websites out there because invariably one of you guys goes and looks it up and I'm not in a website I want to be advertising. So we'll do that later. So this document, which is the public key, the digital signature, a bunch of extra hashes, information that comes from the third party's digital signature, plus the third party's information, plus some anti-bad certificate stuff, all this stuff together is known collectively as a certificate. A certificate is a public key with a bunch of other goo on there so that you're comfortable using that public key. That's it. That's all a certificate is. Now, when you say a certificate, that's almost like saying like a Microsoft Word document form, right? There's certain things in a form that you would expect, like if it's for employment, last name, first name, address, things like that. With a certificate form, there's certain things that they're going to expect. Here, insert public key here, insert encryption type here, insert hash type here, insert digital signature here. Do you get the idea? It's a format. So when you say X.509, you're talking about a format. It's like saying DOCX file or PCAP file or anything like that. A certificate is just a way for people to pass out public keys in a way that makes sense to everybody. It standardizes it and it makes our lives a lot better, especially if you want to set up a web page. Okay? So, you want to look at a certificate? Now again, keep in mind folks, the only certificates I'm going to be showing you all today are certificates that come from web pages. You can have certificates for device drivers. You can have certificates for installed software programs. You can have certificates for email. And they all basically roughly look the same, but they have a few different changes in them depending on what they're going to be doing. Like for example, let me give you a great example. if you look at a web page certificate, somewhere in that certificate it's going to say, this is the web page, www. We're going to use fred.com because I like it, www.fred.com. And if you are not on www.fred.com and a certificate comes down and it's www.frood.com, well, your web browser better be freaking out. We want you, it's like your web browser's like, bad. Will Roberts, lost in space, man, where'd that come from? Okay, so anyway, let's take a look at a certificate. Scott Jernigan is texting me. Am I reading what Scott Jernigan has to say? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, certificate time. Okay, I hope this works. Here we go. Okay, this is just my thing. You guys can't see it down here, but here at the bottom. Okay, that's close enough. So what I want to do is, you know what? Let's make this easier. I just got a web browser up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, all right, so you can see I've gone to this website arbitrarily, www.fred.com, and it's like cool jewelry for cool people. All right, but what's important to us is right here. Do you see where it says HTTPS? That means that this is a secure website. When I typed in www.fred.com and after the DNS got the IP address, my browser sent a request to this web server, wherever it is, and the first thing it said is, I would like to do this secure, and the server immediately brought back and they did a TLS handshake, and we now have a secure connection. Pretty cool, right? We didn't have to do anything special, it just happened. And of course, the infamous lock right here tells us that that's taken place. So here, let's do something that very few people do. Let's actually take a look at this certificate. So I'll come in here, here's the connection information. Is that it? Okay, so here, let me do that again because I think I did that too fast. And again, I'm using Firefox here, folks. So connection secure, so I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go to more information. And right here it says view certificate. Ta-da! All right. So what we're looking at right now is the certificate that the www.fred.com web server passed down to our browser, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we're about to go a lot deeper than I can certainly assure you that A+, Net+, or Security Plus will ever go. We could go into some wider stuff, but I don't want to do that today. So the last thing I want you guys to be doing right now is like, oh my God, I have to remember everything Mike Meyers is saying now. No, you know what I want you to do? Just groove on it, man, you know? Just learn. Don't panic about, well, what number is this? And what's the fixed variant? And what X.503 or 509? Who cares? Just grok it. Be cool, okay? This is a really important learning thing, especially when you guys are in this, I have to get all these certificates frame of mind. I would much rather you kind of understand the 5,000-foot view of this, and then you can go in the details or take my Security Plus courses or something like that and get more details. But right now, just understand. Okay. There we go. All right, so let's take a look here. So this is the actual certificate itself. Now, I got to throw in one more thing. Firefox is trying to be helpful here, and they're organizing the certificate for us. We could actually go in and look at the certificate in a much more raw format, but to be honest with you, it's actually kind of convenient. So there's different ways that people are going to actually let you look at the certificate. These are not text files, okay? You can't open up Notepad and read a certificate. It's like trying to open up Notepad to read a Excel spreadsheet. It ain't going to happen, okay? So they have different ways to interpret this. Firefox opens up another little web page for you so you can look at it this way, okay? Lots of different ways to do it. They all work fine. All right, so this is the people who actually did it. It's a company called Let's Encrypt. They're actually pretty popular. This is the actual root. We're going to talk about PKI and what root a CA is a certificate authority. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Here's some of the important stuff. Right here is the date and time, not before and not after. If your web browser looks at this certificate and that not after date, it's passed, that means the certificate's expired, you're going to get a big old warning screen. I'm going to show you one in just a minute. We like our browsers to warn us about stuff. Okay, so here's the public key information. Now, a lot of times, so like here, the algorithm is RSA, which means they use two different prime numbers to generate this. But the key size and exponent and modulus, collectively, those generate the key, okay? So one of the things you always got to be careful about, like when we talk about, well, this is a, RSA 1024 versus an RSA 2048, and everybody's like looking for a 2048-bit key or a 1024-bit key. The first time you start ripping into a certificate, you ain't going to find one because it's actually the key size, the exponent, and the modulus together do magic mathematics. Hey, all the math is on Wikipedia. I tried to do it once, and it was hard. Math is hard. And so I'm not interested in how they actually generates the key. There's wonderful books to do stuff like that, and it ain't going to be in Mike Meyers. And nobody on any CompTIA certs that I know of, heck, on any certs, yeah, here, I'm going to be brazen. No certification of any form is ever going to sit there and say, please, by hand, do an RSA key pair generation. No, not going to happen. Okay, let's just keep going here. So here's a serial number. Now, a serial number is actually generated by whoever has issued this certificate. And whoever issued this certificate has to create a unique number. This is not a hash value or anything like this. It's just a unique identifier. These unique identifiers are important because most web browsers use this to find out and verify who signed the certificate. Remember, you have two digital signatures on a certificate. You have one that came from www.fred.com, so they self-signed it. But then they're going to do better than a self-signed because they're going to have a third party, which in this case, who was it again? Let's Encrypt. It's a real popular company. And they actually do free certificates. The problem is they're so automated, they're boring. So we have this third party you signed. So when a browser gets this certificate, who is this third party, right? Who is it? Well, luckily for you, built in every browser, there is an answer. Let me pull this up real quick. Stand by, please. I'm going to pull this up real quick. Yeah, I've really rehearsed this real well. All right, here, I'll bring it back. So you guys hear I'm going. So I've lit up Control Panel real quick. And on Windows, I go to Internet Options. And where is it from here? Not connections. How about security? No, it was under content. See right there? See where it says certificates? So we click on that. Now, what you're looking at right now here, folks, is the certificate store for this individual Windows computer. So this is not just for web certificates. This could be for other stuff. I don't have anything else other than web certificates. But what I want you to look at is right here. See where it says Trusted Root Authorities? So these are all of the people who have certificates. These are root certificates that are built into the browser. These root certificates came with the browser. When I downloaded Firefox, it had all of these root certificates built into it. Now these root certificates, these are the public certificates here, right? But what you could do is you could take the signature value that's stored in www.fred.com's certificate and run a hash value and compare it to a hash value that's stored on the root certificate, and it will verify that, yep, Certrum or Komodo or DigiCert, I'm just reading names here, that one of these people actually signed to it. GoDaddy. All kinds of them in there. Flate. More VeriSign. So the problem with these authorities, okay, is that they're being hit a lot. As you can imagine, every time anybody hits a secure web page, pretty much all web pages are secure, they would be hit a lot where people are confirming this stuff. So first of all, if we keep this a copy in the browser itself, it can check there. And browsers work real hard to keep this stuff updated. Firefox and Chrome and all the other Edge, they're constantly updating their root certificates all the time, make sure they're in good shape. The other thing that happens is we'll have intermediate certificate authorities, or ICAs. Let me show those to you. ICAs, there used to be tons of these. It really surprises me how few there are today. So intermediate authorities are just somebody, there's a trusted root authority. Like if you look at here, is there a Microsoft one? Yeah, there's all kinds of Microsoft root authorities. And then there's thank goodness. So then there's some Microsoft in there too. The idea is these intermediate authorities just take some of the heat off. Doesn't really matter which one you hit, all right? This is collectively known as PKI, all right? Public Key Infrastructure. You have root authorities issue certificates. In fact, most of the time root authorities just generate intermediate certificate authorities, and the intermediate certificate authorities actually generate the certificates, although that's starting to change a little bit. Bottom line is that your browser looks at this stuff and compares values to make sure that it's good. Okay. Let's get back. I'm not even going to close this because the moment I do, we're going to want to come back and look at it. All right, so here's where you can actually see the entire chain coming into, this is going to be in a raw format. Let's see what it looks like, yeah. Here's what certificates look like if you open them up in a text browser. They're kind of unreadable, but these are actually this is probably the root, this is an ICA, and this is the actual fred.com certificate. Yeah. They're ugly and big and... So a fingerprint is a hash value. A fingerprint is nothing more than a hash value of the entire certificate, including the fingerprint. So if you make any changes, it's going to show up here. And then everything's going to have a purpose. So here it's going to be digital signature, certificate signing, and CRL signing. They can be a lot more specific here. They could be email is like a whole branch of certificates. Stuff like that. So these subject key ID and authority key ID, these are numbers that are arbitrarily generated by the system itself. Oh, I lied to you. I lied. Sorry, man. So the serial number is just a unique identifier for the certificate. These subject and authority key IDs are used by the browser to compare against the intermediate and root certificates. These are the ones that actually do the, is this legit, the quickest one. Okay. Now the other thing you got to keep in mind is all these certificates have different, the stuff I'm showing you is more the basic stuff. You're going to see all kinds of other things. Like for example, Scott, get your hands on the keyboard. What is the thing that replaced CRL? Scott Jernigan, bail me out, brother. Tunde Sobata. Does this have anything to do with DNS table? Nothing. Tunde Sobala. SSL? SSL is old. Nobody uses SSL anymore. We use TLS. However, the word SSL is still used. I apologize. Everything we're looking at here is TLS. Certificates can support either ancient SSL, which like none do anymore that I'm aware of, or they support more modern TLS. Scott, you got to help me. What replaced CRL? OSCP? And what the heck does it stand for? Sebastian Trusu, is 802.1x known as radius or is that different fish food? It is the same and it is different. I've got an entire video on Radius that you need to check out that I think you would find that to be an answer. 802.1x is a standard of authentication that uses, among other things, Radius. Yes, OCSP. What does it stand? I'll look it up. Scott is busy. Online certificate status protocol. Okay. All right, let's head back into there. All right, so as we scroll down here a little bit more, one of the things is we have a certificate revocation list, or a CRL, and then this is always a URL to get to. How does a web browser know if a certificate is good or bad? Well, it can look at a lot of stuff. It's going to look at the date and time. Has it been revoked? It's going to look at who it's issued to. Is it issued to www.fred.com? Okay, well that makes it better. It can go ahead and double check with the subject key ID or authority key ID against the ICA or the root certificate. So it can do all of these steps. But what if somebody's really good and just killed the certificate? Well, what they came up originally was something called a certificate revocation list, or CRL. So CRLs is a list where the web browser could go up and check it out. The problem is that the last thing you want your web browser to be doing, because you're sitting here, because you want to get to www.ebay.co.uk, and you're sitting there waiting. You're like, oh, this web browser is terrible because it's taking forever to check. You don't know what's happening. It's just going slow. So even though the CRL was pretty good, it was slow, everybody dumped it. They tried to come up with something to replace CRL, which is called OCSB, Online Certificate Status Protocol. Does this even have it in there? It does. Here, let me show that to you. So here's the CRL settings. Here is the OCSP settings right here. Okay? The whole goal of these is a quick and dirty way. Like if somebody goes bankrupt, this would be a methodology that would allow folks to verify that these certificates are good. The bottom line is that almost nobody uses them, which is too bad. And the main reason most people don't use them is because users get crabby because we have to wait 0.4 seconds longer to get to our www.scaryplace-that-you-shouldn't-be-going-to.com website. I will get off my soapbox. Okay, what else is in here? There's just some little bogus verification stuff that I'm not interested in. Okay, so anyway, that, folks, is a certificate. Okay, now the certificate we're looking at here is the one that our web browser showed us when we went to www.fred.com. Okay, so what I thought might be fun now is let's spin this around and let's set up a web server and install our own certificate. You want to do that? Yay! Okay, let's do that. It'll be fun. I hope this works. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, I can do this. Okay, so first of all, I actually installed IIS on this system. You should be able to see that. IIS is the web server that comes with every version of Windows. It is not installed by default. Oh, you want me to show you that too? All right. I can do this. I can do this. Hang on. Any fires burning? Yeah. Okay. That's James Stanger from CompTIA texting me back. Okay. So what I want to do, what am I going to do? What am I doing here? Oh yeah. All right. So I'm going to control panel. And what am I looking for here? Programs and features. See that? And I got lots of stuff installed. You see right here it says turn Windows features on or off. Click right there. Scroll this over. And I've already installed it, but what you want to do is click on these two boxes. Burp, burp. And you hit OK, and it will install a perfectly good web server called IIS. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at this IIS and have a little fun with it. All right, you guys can't see this part, but all right, so this is the interface for IIS. Can I make this smaller? Yes, excellent. Okay. You guys hear that trash can outside? Okay. So right now, I want to test this, make sure it's up and running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, watch which website I'm going to. You ready? I'm going to go to http://127.0.0.1. And if I've done this right, we see the wonderful default. This is the default web page that comes with IIS. So let's hang on here for a minute, because this confuses people. Because they're like, wait a minute, Mike, you're on one computer, right? Are there any VMs in here? No, it's just one computer. No virtual machines, it's one computer, all right? What I've done is on one computer, I've got the web server running, and then on the same computer, I opened up a web browser. Got a server and a browser on the exact same computer. They're like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Of course you can do it. Do it all the time. Man, I tell you, almost any time I'm learning about any kind of client server tool, most of the time I'm going to install the server version and the client version on the exact same computer and just tell the client version to go to 127.0.0.1, better known as loopback. That's how we play with these things. Okay? God, I wish I could see you guys right now. I want everybody going, okay, Mike, we're cool, let's keep going. I'm going to pretend like you're all doing that. All right. So here we are. Now the problem is you take a look, this is not a secure web page. I don't have any lock. I'm just running good old port 80 HTTP. And what I want to do is I want to set up this guy to run as a secure web page. So that's going to take a couple of clicks, okay? Now, look, every web server is different. Okay, server certificates. You guys see that? I'm going to click on there. Oh, let's just delete that. That's no fun. That's something from before. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I could actually import a certificate from someplace. Now, you got to be careful here. This is a web server, so we need a key pair. We need both a private key and a public key. Now, IIS is perfectly capable of generating a public and a private key pair built into the software. It can do that. It can actually create a certificate. But the problem is that we need a certificate to come from a third party that everybody trusts. Get the idea? So we're gonna march through a little bit of a step here. So watch this. Okay, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a certificate request. Do you guys see that? I know it's a little small. So what certificate request? So a certificate request, let's talk about this for a minute. Certificate requests are going to be built in, so again, we're just talking about web servers here, okay? So you create a certificate request, God bless it, I forget what they're called. Certificate CSR. I don't know why I'm getting confused with these. Anyway, the bottom line is this is how we get a certificate for our web server. What we're going to do is we're going to fill out all this gobbledygook, and I'm going to do this really quick. I'm making up bogus stuff here, but I'll let you guys look. shouldn't. Whoops. All right, so you see I've typed in some values here. Like, for example, for this guy, I would have to type in the actual URL. That's where that comes in. And then I want to say what kind of encryption I want. Basically, I can do Diffie-Hellman, which would actually work, but it's very much obsolete. Or do standard good old RSA. And even RSA 1024 is way too small. So let's just take it up to 2048. And then I'm going to have to put this someplace. So let me throw it on my desktop. And I'm going to hit finish. Okay. So you see that little file right there? Do you see that? Can you guys see that? So what I've created is this little file. If I actually, I can open this. It's text. So you'll see it says certificate. I need more space. You see it says certificate request and end certificate request. So basically, this certificate request is really like a proto-certificate. It has pretty much everything we need to make it a real certificate, except one thing. It's going to need a third party to inject its signature in here, and then it will become a legitimate, true, readable by the proper people certificate. It's not only a certificate, it's a key pair, okay? So what we then do is we take this certificate request, and then we send it up to somebody like Komodo or somebody like this. Or other people like Let's Encrypt do this so automatically, it's terrifying. Like really automatically. You don't even see a certificate request. You got to fill out a couple of words and that's about it. So this CSR gets generated, and like back in the old days, you used to get an email back from Komodo or Thwate or VeriSign, and it would say, come grab your key pair. And you had a link in the email, you hit the email, and all of a sudden it was like, burp. Your public and private key are stored properly in the key store. You have a new certificate you didn't see before, and you're ready to rock and roll. Now, I don't want to go through all that, mainly because either today it's so automated that it's boring, or it's so slow that it would take forever to actually go through that process. Make sure you're comfortable with the fact that you have to generate a certificate request within the app, which is usually going to be a web server. That certificate request is uploaded to a third party, which then comes back with a certificate key pair. Okay, but what we can do here, which can be a little bit fun, is we're going to generate a self-signed certificate. So basically, we're going to make our own certificate. The only thing is we're going to say nobody's going to third party sign it. Okay? Alrighty. So there's a little thing that says create self-signed certificate. Give me a friendly name. I'm going to call it Timmy. This is a web hosting certificate. That's it. All right, so you have just made a new certificate. So what we can do now, watch this. So what I'm going to do now, I hope this works. So I'm going to do HTTP. Oh, it's not going to work because I haven't bound it yet. Oops, we forgot one little step. Okay, so here I got to go to this thing called bindings. Right now it's only listening on port 80. I'm going to add HTTPS, all addresses, anybody's name, anybody, and I'm going to grab a certificate called Timmy. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit close. I did that too fast. You see where it's listed on port 443? And the IP address means anybody? Okay. So that's all I had to do to actually turn it on. So let's see if it works. 127.0.0.1. Cool. That's actually a good thing because it's a self-signed certificate. My web browser's like, I'm not sure this is a good thing. Oh, that's not what I want. Advanced. Oh, so this certificate is only valid for Mike Studio. So not only is the error that it's self-signed, but also that the certificate is not for 127.0.0.1. So he's doing a good job protecting me. And this is the web browser's job, to make sure that my certificate is legit. So that's kind of a quick and dirty on certificates. Keep in mind, remember the most important thing is that a certificate in its classic form, when it was first invented, it carries a public key, a digital signature from whoever owns the private key, and then if it wants to be anything other than a self-signed certificate, like the one you just saw, then it's going to have a third party that creates the actual certificate pair, okay? A certificate pair is a little bit different than a regular certificate. They have different names. It's PKCS number 7 versus PKCS 12. I don't remember. I might be lying to you. There's actually a special type of certificate which has both the public and the private key in, and these certificates only last for mere milliseconds as the issuing body imports them and then breaks them apart, basically, is what happens. I can't remember the name. I forgot. All right. So from here, we can go all kinds of different ways in terms of understanding certificates. But you're going to have to ask me some questions. I am very interested in continuing this on, but it's going to be up to you. Now, keep in mind that Wednesday I've got Elaine, but Elaine and I don't have to talk for 2 hours on getting jobs and things like that, which we're glad to do. So, the trick is you have to ask me questions. So, send me an email. All you have to do is send me a little email, and, like if you're even not sure what to ask me, just go ahead and throw it right in there. And I am here to help you out. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we've already drilled down certainly further than A+, certainly further than NET+. We're probably at about a Security Plus level right now. Yeah. I'd be pretty, with what you just learned about certificates here, I think you would probably be able to answer most, if not all, the questions you'd run into in Security Plus. Man, I gotta tell you guys, Security Plus is not a very deep certification. It's wide, but it is not deep. Okay. All right, how are we doing on questions here, kids? Hang on. We've had some scrolling. Hang on, just trying to get caught up with where everybody is. Cyan Pauls, I am from India. I have done my graduation this year with a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science. How should I start? Go get a job. Cyan, go get a job. Is the economy good in India? I think it is. Go get work. One more time, if you have a 4-year bachelor's degree, you don't need any certifications to get a job. You need nothing. Go get a job, okay? Somebody from India, help me out here. Is it that hard to find work? You go get a job. Now, once you get this entry-level job, which is probably going to be some god-awful programming job in the bottom of a basement someplace, that's when you start going for your certificates, Cyan. Number 1, work. Number 2, certificates. Certification is what you do on nights and on weekend to get your next job. I do not think that you go to school and then you get these certs and then magically everybody's like, oh, sure, come on in, Cyan, we love you, look at all this stuff. I'm telling you, only maybe 15% of everybody in IT has a bachelor's degree. That's already a ticket to happiness, man. You can get work. From there, then you pursue certificates based on where your passions and your goals. Do you want to get and become a wireless nerd? Man, I'll tell you, that's what everybody wants to be in IT security. What we need are wireless people who can actually configure an enterprise properly with wireless access points so it's not all blowing up. All right, whatever. You want to get into Cisco, you want to get into Microsoft, you want to become wireless, you want to do IT security. And if you say IT security, what does that mean? What, do you want to become a penetration tester? You do vulnerability assessment? You want to become a physical security person? People make tons of money just teaching people how to put in 2 locked doors, a guard, and a camera. It's crazy how much money they make. Everybody thinks they're going to be a hacker. It's not how it works. Get a job. Whew. I love you, Sion. Please come back. Dear Kays, I purchased your Udemy course and have your A+ book. Yay! But I like the Udemy more than the boring book. Is the course enough for the exam? See, guys, I keep saying the same stuff. Dear, I just said this. Okay, dear, in order to pass any certification, not just CompTIA, any IT cert, heck, any cert, nursing certification, attorney certification, in my opinion, you need 3 things. Number 1, you need a book. Number 2, you need videos, or if you don't have videos, instructor-led training. And number 3, you need practice questions. These 3 things is what I guarantee nothing, that I have had in the last 25 years the most success getting people through. Now, does that mean you must have? No, you don't have to have anything. Just go take the test. Just walk in. Go for it. Good luck. If you had nothing else, then you would want practice questions. Now, you said boring book. Thanks, pal. I bleed on this book. He calls it boring. Just give me a minute. Okay. If you're not a reader, then use videos. But to me, you need all 3. That is what is the most success I've seen people do. I've seen plenty of people do just videos. Never do a practice question. And they pass A+ or NET+. I've seen people do just practice questions and pass A+ and or NET+ or Security+. I've seen people, in fact, there used to be a time all I had was a book. And lots of people passed with just a book. Do what you want. I'm telling you how I am successful, and how I have led probably well over 1 million people to be successful. You do what you want. For digital signature, what does the web server encrypt with a private key and generate hash to encrypt? What does it encrypt? What does it encrypt? Falak? I forgot. It's the HMAC. Dave Rush, Scott Jernigan, it's a good question. So Falak's asking, in order to create the digital signature, and remember this is the only time this happens, the only time the private key encrypts is to create a digital signature. What does it encrypt? Scheiße. I forgot. I'm sorry, Falak. Let's see your Easter eggs. Thomas, I barely know you. Should I go Security Plus or Network Plus? I think Network Plus is fabulous. Jao Sosa, yes, Mike, please show subjects that are not covered by the exams. Your books and videos are more than enough. Yeah, I don't care. Jao, thank you for that. Look, I teach 4 things. Number 1, I teach you what's on the exams. Number 2, I teach you what's going to make you a good technician. Number 3, this is a weird one. No, it's not. Number 3 is I teach you stuff that's just because it's cool. CIC. Sometimes it's just cool to do something, and I'm going to teach you to do it. And then number 4, and this is the weird one, I teach you things that you may not need to know. But if I don't tell you, then you'll be angry at me. So there are things I teach on that. If you think any of my training materials, you think my books or my videos, actually the practice questions are pretty much tight to the exams, but like my books and my videos, I want you to be a good tech first. El primero parte. But yeah, I don't care. I'm going to teach you what it means to be a good tech. Oh, and if by the way you pass Security Plus 2, good for you. That's how it is. Cyan Paul, how much time should I study for CompTIA A+ certification? So Cyan, for most people, I tell that they should study roughly about 120 hours. For some people who are very inexperienced, it could be more like 220 hours. For people who are very experienced, it's only about 40 hours. If you use my book, which somebody said was boring, but if you use my boring book, in the introductory part, I actually create a table to help you calculate how many hours you would need to be, best guess, that you would need to take the A+. But it's very boring. Cyan, you just got the book from Amazon, you big lug. Hey guys, what about Google IT Professional Certificate? Is it worthy or should I go for CompTIA A+? Cyan, I don't know anybody who's got a job or has moved forward or has been recognized through those certifications. I may have missed stuff, but I don't know of anybody who's had that. Eric Crenshaw, how many years are the A+, N+, or Security Plus certs good for? 2 or 3 years. Generally about 3 years. There's no fixed number in there, Eric. It's until CompTIA comes up with the next one. So it could be 2 years or it could be... Sorry, I'm getting in, this just in. Is it the web? No, it can't be the web page. We're still trying to figure out the answer to the question is what gets encrypted by the private key to create the digital signature. Yeah, Scott, I don't think it's the web page on this part of it. Am I dramatic? I don't mean to be dramatic. I'm full of love. Morning Saint. I hate to say it, but I was alarmed at how easy the A+, Net+, and Security Practice quests seem to be. Simply the basics. That's my impression. So, Morning Saint, are you saying my practice questions? I would say I think my questions are pretty challenging. However, Elaine says, session? The session? Elaine, I don't know what the session means. Send me a text. Sorry, guys. People are talking to me on my phone as well as talking to you on the chat, so I don't want to miss anything. Sorry, Elaine. I don't mean to be a dumb bunny. I don't know what you mean by the session. Did I get dramatic? I don't mean to be dramatic. CompTIA Security Plus 601 is released. Yeah, Coley, we just heard about that too. So the new Security Plus 601, which Scott and I are working on like crazy people even as we speak, is released November of this year. And we'll be ready for it. Session, what gets encrypted? The delay between my ranting, Elaine, and then your texting, I'm lost. Sorry. Oh, no, not yours, some random. That's why I keep researching. Yeah, I'll tell you, Morning Saint, one of the big things that I tell people all the time is like, don't use just one source for practice questions. Look, I think my practice questions are incredible. They're just fabulous. Not only are my questions themselves good, but the engine we use mimics the CompTIA exam. So, you know, we're trying to reduce the fear. Everybody's afraid, right? So that's a bit of a challenge. Sorry, I'm getting other stuff. So anyway, so one of the things I tell people is, so it's great. I like people using my practice questions, but you really ought to consider a second source. Really. And there's lots of other great ones out there. I'm not going to name any names. Transcender is no longer out there. Anyway, you should always get a second source. And Morning Saint, I think you're kind of running into the issue. There's a lot of issues. This is one of them, is that maybe the practice questions you're running into might be a little on the easier side than mine, which are really designed very hard to give the absolute look and feel and complexity of the actual exams. It's the session that's encrypted. Now, something's got to be specifically encrypted. And Elaine, I'm not arguing with you. I don't remember. Missed questions. Sabrina, hi Mike. Thanks for the work you do. Love your content. What's your favorite certification? What's your most passionate about? Well, you got to keep in mind, I'm an instructor, so I like the certifications I like are the ones that give my students the most learning and the most strength, and that would probably be CompTIA Network Plus. I will also tell you that CompTIA Network Plus, it's very challenging to get a job with it by itself, unlike, say, A Plus or Security Plus or Pen Test Plus. Network Plus is it's the last time you get to look at networking from a vendor neutral standpoint. Anything you do past then, you're going to look at it from a Cisco standpoint or a Microsoft standpoint or whoever else. And that's why I like Network Plus. It's fun to teach. It's the first time people really understand, that's what 192.168 stands for. It's the first time people understand, that's what DHCP is. That's what DNS is, What is WAN versus LAN, and really understand it. What is an Ethernet frame versus an IP packet, and how these encapsulate and things like that. So that would be that's my answer. Yeah, Coley Dooley, thank you for reminding me about that. That is very important. Guard Burgess, Ireland. The Google certificate is very new. That's not that new, but we'll see what happens. Sebastian Trucy, what do you think of Dion? Jason Dion? You guys actually turned me on. I didn't know about him until a couple of months ago, and I snuck in, looked at his stuff. He's good. Yeah, it's great. You got to keep in mind, the more instructors that are out there, the more opportunity for success you guys have. I'm fine, okay? I've done great over the years. I like seeing new people come into play. That's welcome aboard. All right, we got about half an hour left. What can we cover in that tiny little... we can do IPSec, can't we? Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything important on IPSec. Yeah. Yes, I'm going on Wikipedia, doing a quick double check. So tunneling mode versus authentication header, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's talk about IPSec very, very quickly. All right? IPSec stands for, Internet Protocol Security, IPSec. The idea behind IPSec was when the internet was first invented, there was no encryption anywhere. Guys, everybody thinks web pages started the internet. No, my friends. Emails and telnets and all kinds of other things were happening on the internet way before the web page was even thought of. All right? And the problem is that people began to discover fairly early on that all these different applications had to be encrypted. So, we went from telnet to SSH. We went from unencrypted email to encrypted forms of email. We started out with unencrypted web pages. Now we have encrypted web pages. It was always the application's job to handle the encryption. If you think about it, that's stupid. I mean, it shouldn't have been that way. If they had set it up so that every session between a server and a client was already encrypted, we wouldn't have to have secure FTP. We wouldn't have to have secure telnet. We wouldn't have to have secure email. We wouldn't have to have secure web pages. Get it? Wouldn't have to have secure VoIP. Wouldn't have to have secure, do I really need to keep going here? Unfortunately, the answer called IPSec came out so late in the process. Let's actually give a time frame when IPSec was developed. Early 90s. So anyway, the whole idea of IPSec's pretty straightforward. IPSec just encrypts between the client and the server. That's it. That's what IPSec was designed to do. It worked at layer 3 of the OSI 7-layer model instead of working at the application layer. IPSec was originally designed as a methodology that would replace all of this. You might still have certificates, but your certificate would be a personal certificate for this computer or this smartphone or whatever it might be. And then that would be your encryption methodologies would be handled between whatever the server is and whatever the client is. Big thing about IPSec, it's the only thing that works at layer 3. It's the only encryption that works at layer 3. The bottom line is IPSec comes in 2 different forms. Where are they at? So you have what's called transport mode, which is just an encrypted connection between 2 devices. And again, folks, I don't care what you're hauling in there. It's encrypted. You could be doing a web page. You could be doing FTP. You could be using Telnet. You could be talking over a VoIP. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference. The idea behind IPSec is that your machine and the other machine would negotiate some way to talk to each other at layer 3, set up a secure tunnel, and then whatever you wanted to do would talk in there. Never happened. Didn't happen. The one place where you can see IPSec is this other mode called tunnel mode. And with a tunnel mode, what will take place, it's kind of like a transport mode, but temporary. So with a tunnel mode, it's going to be like, hi, I just want to make a little connection with you, but not for everything, just for this one conversation. And it ended up being a heck of a good way to do a VPN, virtual private network. So about the only place you see IPSec anymore is for VPNs. I don't think anybody else is using it for anything. Implementations. Is anybody even talking about it? Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there's some kind of place, but I don't believe it. The only place I see IPSec being used anymore is on VPNs. And to be honest with you, even with VPNs running OpenSSH these days, I don't even see IPSec hardly anymore. So, yeah, boring, huh? Yeah, sometimes technology is, answer enough questions to get through an exam and then move on. You gotta be careful though. IPSec's pretty robust. And, like even when IPv6 came out, the rule set was gonna be is that we would have to use IPSec. And everybody's like, we're too invested in, TLS and all this stuff. So by now it's like, forget about it. Okay, Somali had a question on what is PDoS? Permanent denial. Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. Permanent denial of service is, I don't think that's on any of the objectives for any of the stuff we teach, but we can still talk about it. Permanent denial of service basically means I am going to trash a piece of your hardware and take you down. That in order for you to come back up, you're going to have to literally replace a piece of hardware. That's all it is to me. Okay, guys, it looks like are we wrapping up? Yeah, John F. I mean, last time I actually did anything with IPSec was about 4 years ago, setting up a VPN for a Netgear box that had a choice between 3 different kinds of VPNs. And man, was it a mess once you went past that. It was ugly. All right, guys. So, today is Monday. I don't want to do any I'm not giving away anything today, but I'm going to be giving stuff away on Wednesday and Friday. I guarantee that. If nobody else has any more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah, wrap it up a little on the early side. No big deal. Yeah, I don't want to do a competition today. Yeah. Corinne, people, what about IPSec V? No, don't do that, Scott. I don't have any toys for it. Azra, if network address translation resolves a public IP address to a private IP address, why then do we need ARP? Oh, I remember you. Azra, you're confusing things. What people forget about is that we have, like in a local area network, if you want two computers to talk to each other, all right, forget NAT, forget routers. Let's pretend like there's only one local area network on Earth, okay? And there's only maybe 20 computers in here. You don't even need TCP/IP because every computer on there has a MAC address. You can send out a broadcast and they'll be able to talk to each other. Whoever, and this is where the old NetBIOS and Apple Talk protocols, going back in the late 80s, early 90s, this is how they all worked. When the internet came along, things changed a little bit because now we had to have both a MAC address and an IP address. So let's pretend for a minute that you have a network, and this network, all they have are, there is no routers, there's nothing else, but it is TCP/IP, okay? In that case, in order for one computer to talk to the other computer, it has to ARP. So it says, I know what the IP address is, so it sends out a broadcast, and the broadcast goes, whoever has this IP address, send me a packet back so I have your MAC address, because you still have Ethernet. Just because you have IP addresses, don't think Ethernet has magically disappeared. It has not. It is still there. So if network address translation, okay. So now let's add the internet back in. Now we have a router, and this router is doing NAT, and there's a public IP address in front, okay? So now your computer right now wants to send a packet to some computer far away on the internet. If you look at your ipconfig settings, your computer knows its IP address, it knows its subnet mask, it knows its DNS, and it knows its default gateway or the router, but it doesn't know the router's MAC address. Let me show you something. We can do it this way. Please work. That's not it. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in an ARP command. I'm going to do ARP -A. Why is everything always the wrong size? All right, so what you're going to see is you're going to have two sets of addresses in here. The first set of addresses are going to be what are called static addresses. The other one, and these never change. This is like a multicast. This is this broadcast. These are the values that just absolutely never, ever, ever will change. So anytime you see an IP address of 255.255.255.255, the MAC address is all Fs. That is what broadcasting is. Now, you also have dynamic ones. Do you see these? So right there is 172.18. Why is my cursor not showing up? There, barely shows up. 172.18.13.1, that is the MAC address, but it's dynamic. That means every time any computer wants to make darn good and sure that it is sending data to the router, remember, the initial thing was I have a computer, and I've got an IP address of some computer very, very far away. Got it? And then the source is my local address. But I have address very, very far away. I'm not addressing the router. To get to the router, all I'm going to do is I'm going to send out an ARP that says, whoever is 172.18.13.1, what is your MAC address? Yes, I have a dynamic setting in my ARP table, but that could change. So I'll ask again. And what it's going to do, we will never put in the IP address of the router. We put the MAC address of the router. Do you understand? That IP packet is going far away. But the Ethernet frame, it's just going to the router. So we send an ARP, and now we change the destination MAC address to the router. Now it gets to the router. Got it? The moment the router gets a Ethernet frame, it rips all the MAC address stuff off, throws it away. It doesn't need it. Now that router is going to look at the destination address. And that is to get to that destination address from its routing table, it says go out the WAN, right? But it's a NAT router. The source IP address is like 192.168. That can't go out on the internet. So before it sends it out, it takes its own public IP address and screws that in as the source IP address. Got it? So now we have the destination, which we even had on the original client, and now the source IP address is the WAN side of the router itself. Now you want to go send it out, the next link up, I don't even know what it is. Is it Ethernet? Is it ATM? Is it DOSIS, or what you call cable? They put different kind of MAC addresses on there. They're going to go ahead and do their same version of ARP upstream. The IP packet is never touched. All this ARPing is being done so we can get the right Ethernet frame, or the right ATM frame, or the right DOSIS frame, or whatever technology you're using upstream or downstream. It's important. So that's why we have ARP, and that's why we deal with NAT. So you were putting two very different animals that just happen to live very close by to each other, and you're not the first person to do that. You're putting two completely different animals together. I mean, we could take NAT out of the picture and I could redo that whole same thing, it's just there wouldn't be NAT. In that case, the IP packet wouldn't be touched at all. Isn't that cool? I mean, people don't think about that very often, but you know, Ethernet MAC addresses work very closely with IP packets to get the data where we want it to go. Oh, suddenly people started. Aza, I hope that helped. How can I install Mac OS in VirtualBox? Andre, I've tried it 100 times. I've been unsuccessful. I have found a few people that have VirtualBox images out there for Mac, and then when I try to actually run them, I am unsuccessful. Good luck. And by the way, Andre, if you can actually get it to work, tell me how to do it. USA Health Insurance Reform. Hi, Mike. Do you think it's necessary or worth it to upgrade Windows 10 Home to Windows 10 Pro for BitLocker encryption and/or to experiment with certain network devices in your home network? Nah, not really. BitLocker is a darn fine encryption. I won't deny that. But no. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. USA Health Insurance Reform. LBOE. I'm back, but I'll be right back. Thomas Robinson. Can URL links in email be dangerous to click on? Yes, extremely. In fact, if you're not, I know it's great to have things like Gmail, which does a pretty good job, or Yahoo, which does a pretty good job. I use Proton Mail as a private address, and I have found it to be very, very good. I mean, Thomas, that's the biggest problem we have with malware and vulnerabilities today is people clicking on stuff in emails. Aaron Starrett, what would be the reason when I copy my default gateway address after using ipconfig and paste that in my browser, why the browser now says it's an invalid address? Your default, Aaron, because your default gateway is your router. Does your router, I know most home routers, you would type in like 192.160, whatever the router address is, and hit enter, and then that it would do it that way. are you sure you're typing in the correct default gateway? It should work that way. Make sure you're not scooping up, you're doing a cut and paste and maybe you have a colon in the front. It's going to be something simple like that, Aaron. Don't make this complicated. Yeah, you rarely see this, but sometimes the web interface has been turned off. That would make me sad, because unless you were very, very comfortable with configuring that router an alternative way, that probably means that you're hitting the factory default reset button. I think, yeah, there's very few things more important than making sure you know how to do a factory default reset on your home router. All right, there seems to be a conversation going on there. Azar Cameron, I have just 2 computers that I want to link to a network. 2 computer. Would I need a switch? Technically, no. First of all, I would need a switch. You can make what's known as a crossover cable. Research the word crossover cable. And most of the time, you can get 2 devices working together. It's a special cable that you basically switch the transmits and receives. Back in the old days, they worked great. Today, not so much. So you're supposed to have a switch. You should have a switch. So when you ask me a question like that, it's like, yeah, can I pull the bread out of my toaster with a fork? Yeah, you could, but it's probably not the best thing to do. Aaron, when you say a security setting, there is only one default gateway, okay? No, there's no security setting at this level. Also keep in mind, Aaron, you might have this is a very real thing, you might have something else that's puking out fake DHCP information. So I can install a computer and it's got a DHCP passing out, but I can put another computer in that and it passes out something totally different. It's called a rogue DHCP server. That would be something I would be very worried about. You're about to go on television. Oh, all right. Yes, you are. Everybody saw you. That's the other big thing. Like when you set up your home network or your office's network and you set up a network ID, I don't care what it is. Well, number one, it ought to be unique. Like I do 172.18.13 just because I like it. Okay? I never use 192.168s, mainly because people assume those things. So suddenly, like if I was in Aaron's situation, and instead of getting 172.18.13.1, suddenly I get 192.168.1.1 as my default gateway. I don't need to look at anything. All I run is ipconfig. I'm like, uh-oh, I've got a rogue DHCP server. You would be shocked how easy it is to have rogue DHCP servers appear. And I'm not saying people are being evil. Most of the time, it's a bunch of accountants that, because your wireless network doesn't quite hit there, they plug in their own little 802.11, they plug it into a jack, and they plug it into a jack, and all of a sudden they're sending out the default Linksys wireless, and they're making a mess. Yeah. Rogue DHCP server. On software-defined networking, I have this idea about it's a nearly artificial intelligence application. No, not really. I mean, what's happening whenever you talk about SDN, you've got the parts of let's just go with a router for a minute, okay? You got the parts of the router that actually move the ones and zeros around, okay? And then you have the other part of the router that has to do the brains and the configuration and the setup and the access control list and all that kind of stuff. So they're two very kind of different animals, you know what I mean? So if we separate these two functions, now typically in a router, these are they're all put together, right? I mean, if you open a router up, you're going to see a CPU, you're going to see BIOS in there, which the iOS, if we're doing Cisco operating system, I mean, they're PCs. So with SDN, we're kind of separating the software part from the control part. And this can be done within one box where we have snap-in planes that can be changed out. We can take all of our switches to be pretty dumb, where the switches only handle the control part and they're all controlled by a big master control switch in the sky. So all we do is go to this one control switch and reconfigure access control. Well, if it's a switch, let's make it easier than that. We're setting up VLAN configuration. And then that all gets dispersed to the proper switches. So when we're talking about SDN, we're separating the control features from the control plane, I forget what the other term is. Yeah. This really becomes a lot more convenient when you're up in the cloud. You know, you just have some interface that allows you to deal with all your virtual switches. Dave L., how would you recognize a rogue DHCP server? Well, that's why, one more time, when you set up a network, you know what your network IDs are. Do you understand? Because you've set up the network, Dave. And you set up on your router, on the LAN side, it's going to be 172.18.13 WAC 24. And the router is .1. Get the idea? You know wherever your DHCP server is because you configured it. Do you understand? Most of the time when the rogue DHCP server comes in, it's not going to be clever, okay? It's going to, instead of passing out your perfect little 172.18.13s, suddenly everybody starts to get 192.168 addresses. What the heck? It's because some idiot in accounting or your brother-in-law or whatever thought they're going to be helpful and they plug this little box that they bought from the local computer store, they plug it into an RJ45 port in your office or in your house, and suddenly everybody's getting this bizarre information. So you'll know because, number one, people sometimes can or cannot get on the internet, and you type in ipconfig, and where you know it should have been 172.18.13s because 3 years ago you configured this, suddenly you see 192.168s. I can even set up a DHCP server that only changes your default gateway. That's it. You keep your 172.18.13s, but I'll be your default gateway. Send everything through me. I'm your proxy server now, and I'm watching everything. Okay? You know because you know what you set your network up for. Man, nothing scares me more when I talk to a tech. I go, what's your network ID? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, really? You call yourself a tech, even at home. You don't even know what your network ID is for your own network? Or even worse, then you like to type ipconfig for the first time in your life, and you see, oh, it's 192.168.1. Okay. Change it to something unique, will you? Use a 10 dot address. Use a 172. Use something. If you got to use 192.168, do like 192.168.223 WAC 24. That's how you know. If everybody sticks at 192.168 ones or 192.168 zeros and a rogue DHCP comes in, who knows? USA Health Insurance. Hi, Mike. I have gigabit Xfinity at home. Cool. Get pretty decent speeds, 700 megabits per second, 5G. Those are great. The only way I would know how to extend 5G speeds to the backyard is mesh right now. Give it 6 more months and let's see what other products come out the door. Ooh, Scott Jernigan's typing, watch out. Wire and a new app. Well, it's 5G, Scott, so that's a little bit of a tricky game here because he wasn't really talking about expanding his regular wireless. He was saying 5G, which to me is a cellular thing. Where could you fix a session for virtual networks on switch and wireless, please? Where could you fix a session for virtual networks on switch? I think I know what you're saying, is that you're not saying to fix a session. What you're saying is you probably have some virtual device that's not talking to another device. Falak, what are you using for your virtual network? You have to tell me that first. What are you using? Are you using VMware? Are you using a virtual PC? What are you using? Answer me that, and then I'll hopefully be able to help you. Matt H. Did I ever work help desk? No, never. Well, I mean, no, I never worked a full-blown classic help desk. Is there the possibility in the future of MAC addressing being expanded beyond 48 bits like the IPv4? Yeah, they've already started doing it. It's called EUI64. If you look at an IPv6 address, remember the last half of an IPv6 address technically is based on a MAC address, but the MAC address is only 48 bits and the last half of the IPv6 is 64 bits, so you have to go through this inserting an FFFE in the middle. It's all this bizarre stuff. EUI64 came out as an answer to that, but the bottom line is everybody's like, we don't need it. And it's been kind of ignored. So, Anthony, we can, but nobody cares. Uh-oh. No offense intended, but for most purposes, changing network ID will not help anything. I've been an IT consultant, and I've never once had a reason to worry. Okay, first of all, Brandon, your guys are always welcome to disagree with me. They were talking about a very specific situation that I felt came up by having a rogue DHCP server magically appear. And my challenge to you would be that it's not so much changing it, it's knowing what your network ID is. I change it to something very, very unique simply because it helps me to quickly identify. So Brandon, unless we are under a very sophisticated attack, when the accounting guys accidentally plug in a wireless home router into one of your RJ45s, and when that thing starts puking out DHCP downstream, it's probably going to be 192.168s. So my challenge to you would be in this one specific situation, which I've seen happen time and time again, that yes, by changing my network ID away from the classic 192.168s, it would be a benefit, in my opinion. But when you can teach us live, don't know. Matt H, was there ever an IPv6? Oh yeah. Oh, IPv5, no. Nope. No, Brandon, keep me on your toes, man. I learn every day. So I'm never, ever offended. Don't apologize for anything, brother. Mike, I installed Linux on WSL2 Windows. WSL. I am terrible at acronyms. WSL2 Windows 10, and then you RDP into the GUI inference via PowerShell. YouTube video I saw. Wow, I don't even know how to do that. That sounds cool. Is it better than installing and using a VMware VirtualBox? Oh, Windows system for Linux. Yeah. USA Health Reform, I've never done that. That's not a virtual machine, though. That's a different animal. So the right answer is I don't know. I installed it once and kind of goofed with it a little bit, and that was it. Good Lord. Yeah, we're going to quit early today. You need to know how to install classic virtual machines for A+ and Net+, and by the time you get Security+, they just assume you know it, then they ask questions on top of that. So I would say that you still need things like VirtualBox or VMware to make sure you understand. People use this stuff all the time. And yes, if you have found a unique and interesting situation that doesn't need that, send me an email because I would love, here, let me throw it up real quick because I'd like to see how you're doing that. Send me an email and just send me a link to that YouTube video so I could look at it too. Again, I learn something new every day. And let me look at it because I'd like to see how that works too. Asa, I thought we already did this. Are these all for authentication? Yes, among other things. What is the difference? Asa, come on, brother. We did this like last week. We did all the EAPs. Asa, we've got a video just on Radius versus Takakis that I'd like you to watch that. And I believe we have another video done less than 2 weeks ago on all the EAP versions. So, Asa, please watch those videos. They're completely free. They're on this channel. And you're asking very, very broad questions. So, Asa, have you read any of my books or watched any of my videos or anything? I worry when people ask these very broad questions like this. Look, if you're using other people's stuff, that's fine. You're not required to use just my stuff to ask questions. But then I would say whatever you're studying with is probably terrible because if what is teaching you makes you ask me very broad questions like this, maybe you should consider purchasing some of my excellent stuff. Okay, I wasn't sure. These are just very broad questions. It's like you've done no studying and then you start asking me these broad questions. Okay, no, I'm a believer in you too, man. All right, guys, look, it's 4:01, so it's kind of the end of the day. I got to be talking to my buddy Elaine anyway, so I got to let you guys go. We will be back Wednesday with Elaine, and we're going to be talking about getting jobs and the state of affairs and all that kind of fun stuff. So Wednesday will be a good day, and I promise we're going to be, in honor of Elaine being on, we'll be giving something away, absolutely guaranteed. So come in on Wednesday, and then keep in mind, I just heard back from CompTIA, so we're going to get, so we're going to have some really great speakers. I am excited. I'm sorry the EC Council decided to cancel, but we're going to have some great people. This is great. This is very exciting, and so many great things I learned today. Guys, thank you so much for some of the information that I heard from, especially in the EU and jobs like that. That was also great too. All right, well, I need to wrap this up or Scott Jernigan's going to start punching me in the head. So until Wednesday at 2 o'clock, Central Daylight Time, this is your Uncle Mikey saying good night. Good night.